He's here this evening at about 4:30 p.m. at Shivaji Park, and we are all eagerly awaiting the message that he will give us today.
So if the Mahayuti were to get a majority, who would be the chief minister? Would it be Mr. Shinde? Has any call been taken on that?
We'll decide that once the elections are over. All the four partners in the alliance will sit down, and just as we've made all the decisions very amicably, this decision will be equally smooth. The good part is all the parties hold Prime Minister Modi in such high respect that they believe that whatever decision is taken collectively by all of them and blessed by Prime Minister Modi will be final.
Because in a sense, the BJP gave up the chief ministership when the Shiv Sena split 2 years back.
I don't agree entirely with that. I think it's not a question of giving up chief ministership or accepting it or demanding it. It's always a consensus that you draw up amongst friends. It has happened in the past. For example, in Bihar, we had many more seats, many more legislators than the JDU. But we still chose to agree to have Mr. Nitish Kumar as the chief minister. So similarly in Maharashtra, we thought that Eknath Shinde ji should lead the state the second time around when we came in after 2022. And I think he's done an absolutely fabulous job.
Right. So one of the features of the Maharashtra elections is obviously the Ladki-Bahin scheme, which is supposed to be a game changer. But there is also, a debate on the culture of reveries and freebies, and both groups, opposition parties, you often blame the Congress and the kind of, what you call excessive welfare in Himachal and Karnataka. Why is this scheme any different?
First of all, I'll just correct your choice of words. It's not supposed to be a game changer. It is a game changer. And almost every feedback that we are getting seems to suggest that women across the state of Maharashtra, and nearly 25 million women have already received 5 installments of 1,500 rupees each. That's about 7,500 rupees. We plan to increase that to 2,100 per month. So effectively in the next 5 years, every woman in that age group would be receiving nearly 1.25 lakh rupees. In terms of why we believe the scheme is good for the state of Maharashtra and for our women, I'd like to clarify that Maharashtra being a prosperous state and having a good balance sheet, a good budget surplus, a good situation within our fiscal deficit available to be able to fund such a scheme was carefully considered before we launched the scheme. What we have seen happen in Himachal, where even salaries got delayed, forget implementing the promises that they made. What we've seen in Karnataka or Telangana, where huge promises or guarantees were given, and the people were told, cut, fatafat, you'll be getting all of these things. Unfortunately, for several months, if not years, they are still waiting to receive those promises or have those guarantees implemented because the states did not have the capacity. Maharashtra, we carefully considered it, and it was a part of our budget announcement. So it was not something out of the budget or a future promise which would lead to fiscal imprudence. Second, all of us in this room from the business world know that a twin track approach, on the one hand, deep investments in infrastructure, promoting industry, promoting business, has been the credo of the Modi government. On the other hand, Prime Minister Modi from 2014 has consistently focused on bringing the women of India into the mainstream, empowering them to contribute to the formal economy, empowering them to gradually become equal stakeholders in the national political or economic agenda. Whether it is through the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program, to ensure that the girl child does not drop out of school. And I still remember my son doing a case study in all the municipal schools, even of Mumbai, coming up with a report that lack of sanitary pads and separate toilet for the girl child were one of the main causes for girl children leaving school or dropping out of school in the classes 4 to 6, even in a city like Mumbai. But Prime Minister Modi, coming from very humble background, recognizes all the difficulties our sisters and daughters and mothers have faced. So if you will see his 10 years, whether it is building 120 million toilets to make sure no woman ever has to live a life of indignity, whether it is ensuring every household gets a cooking gas connection so that they are free from the 400 cigarettes of smoke that they have to take in, whether it is making sure that everybody gets access to healthcare through the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, which is now expanded so that all those who are above 70, irrespective of income, will also be covered under an additional 5 lakh rupees for the old people, or whether it is the Jal Jeevan Mission, which has already taken water from a tap directly to 150 homes, and another 2.5 years later will ensure Nal Se Jal, water from a tap for every woman in the country. 43% of our STEM graduates, and we have the world's largest number of STEM graduates every year, are women today. The idea being that we need to get them into the formal economy, we need to get them contributing to national growth, and therefore Prime Minister always said it will be women-led development. It will not just be the development of women. In the political arena, we've ensured that 33% of our members of parliament in the Lok Sabha and all the state assemblies will be women once the census and delimitation exercise is done. Every single aspect of a person's basic needs, Prime Minister Modi has been focusing to ensure that without discrimination, our women folk come up in life, become an equal stakeholder in the economy, and within that, we all recognize that consumption is a very important element to drive the economy. So while infrastructure and industry investments are a major priority, consumption also takes a very important role in national development. 2019, we had come up with a scheme to support our farmers, and nearly 120 or 140 million farming families were given a monthly support so that in the time of an emergency or in the critical times, they have some comfort of money in their pocket. Similarly, I think the Maharashtra government has very wisely ensured that the poor or the lower middle class families, women, have a bank account given through direct benefit transfer without any middleman, without any corruption. And that gives them the ability, the self-confidence to be independent, to be able to take care of their own, and not to be always stressed out if they want to pay the fees of their children or buy some books for their children, or in Diwali or Dasara or Dhanteras or Christmas or the New Year want to buy some new clothes for themselves, for their children, for their family. These small requirements can be taken care of by them. Similarly, yesterday in Pune, I met one financial market influencer. I think her name was Miss Reshma, chartered accountant called Miss Reshma, who I'm told is guiding all the women who get this Ladki-Bahin monthly honorarium or support to invest that money wisely through an SIP, through an insurance product, through a savings product. So I think there are several aspects to this which can help transform the lives of our sisters from Maharashtra. And I compliment the Maharashtra government for the very, very timely intervention to support our women.
So I'll just pick up on some of the themes that you mentioned. So you talked about consumption, perhaps the need to support consumption. So the Indian economy seems to be going through a bit of a soft patch right now. I mean, inflation is above 6%, markets have fallen, some of the recent data has not been so good. So are there any measures the government is looking at to boost consumption? Are you looking at cutting some tariffs, for example, to so that it doesn't feed through to inflation, or any other measures?
Bodhi, first of all, I think everybody in this room will at least recognize and appreciate that to pick up on what Ms. Bhan just said, audacity of ambition, audacity of hope, this government hasn't ever fallen short of audacity of action. And we have always been at the forefront of acting on every single agenda that can help this economy, that can help the country and the people of India. As far as the inflation goes, the kind of synchronized action that both on the monetary policy front and fiscal policy front, government and the Reserve Bank, and you'll hear it from Shakti Kanji when he comes, have been, for the last 5 or 6 years, been very, very actively intervening, has helped India remain one of the best performing economies in the world in terms of inflation management. In fact, if I'm sure CNBC, TV18, with its glorious research team must be doing the data analytics, the inflation under the Modi government for the last 10 years, average inflation has been the lowest India has seen since independence. In fact, when the Monetary Policy Committee came out with their recommendations last time around, they had predicted this month, the last number, to be a spike in inflation. It is not something which is rocket science. I see all the top honchos of the stock market here. They could have told CNBC TV18 the same thing if you had asked them. It was not any surprise. But at the same time, we all recognize that we're going to see that falling again by December or January. I think we are all smart enough to know what's happening, what the base effect is, what are the factors, what was the festival demand. Similarly, in terms of softening of demand, I have 2 points to make. One, I think it's time that industry also and businesses also look at consumer choices and consumer demand for more attractive pricing. And I was just looking at the numbers of a company, an automobile company which just went public. The same would probably go for most of the automobile companies of significance. I was seeing an EBITDA of more than 21%. I was seeing a PAT possibly of 9 or 10% on their balance sheet. I was seeing that they have invested $200 million 25 years ago. But in the last 10 years alone, I didn't have the time to research all 25 years data. Maybe Rahul, your team can help me with that, with a complete analysis. But in the last 10 years alone, on an investment of $200 million, they have already remitted dividend and royalties of upward of 12 or 13 billion dollars in 10 years. They are sitting on a market cap of which their own holding is still about $15 billion. And I still don't have data of how much they are supporting their own suppliers, international suppliers, maybe their subsidiaries or other companies. And aggregate returns on their investment, I think anybody in this room, if you calculate, it's phenomenal.
It's been staggering.
Staggering. And they have a huge demand in India. There's a huge competitive edge manufacturing in India gives you. So I think if smart business people start offering better pricing, better value for money, I'm sure the market will give them a boost. It's for them to decide whether they want to sit on high margins and then, as I read in the paper a couple of days back or maybe yesterday, say that, oh, market is softening, auto market, passenger sales, vehicle sales will be down to 3-4%, or to be more aggressive and try to capture a larger market share at more competitive pricing. I personally am one of those who believes that economies of scale, that the huge demand that 140 crore Indians provide, the demand of 1.4 billion aspirational young India, the demand that our growing economy, our growing income levels offers is unmatched. And the affordability, the competitive edge that this economy of scale gives you will help you not only meet India's need, but also international demand. So choices of businesses, if Rohit Java or all the other big businesses who are sitting here, I don't know who else is there that I can see, Subrakant, I see a lot of friends here. If they become more competitive in their pricing, I'm quite sure they can capture much bigger markets, get much better profits. At least we in government don't work on a quarter tak philosophy that was just now articulated. I think it's time investors also looked at the long term and not panic on every quarter.
So I'm sure they'll be paying close attention. So you're saying basically cut prices. That's what you're telling FMCG companies,
I'm
auto
not
companies.
suggesting anything. I just stated a matter of fact. Choices of the businesses, whatever they want to do.
Should the RBI, since you're saying, obviously everyone knows the inflation was anticipated, that it'll be bad. Should they cut interest rates in December? Or
I certainly believe they should cut interest rates. Growth needs a further impetus. We are the fastest growing economy in the world. We can do even better. And frankly, the largest component of inflation is food inflation. I think the chief economic advisor had also assessed the whole situation. And this is not something I say today. If you look back at the archives, some of the friends here may have heard me talk, even when I was in the opposition, before I came into government. I had been consistently saying, we have a senior RBI governor sitting here, maybe he can throw more light on it. But I think it's an absolutely flawed theory that food inflation should be considered while deciding on the interest rate structure. Food inflation has nothing whatsoever to do with managing inflation. That's a demand-supply situation. That's not something that is being hoarded or stocked in large numbers. I've seen the data of stocking or stockpiling of food products. As Consumer Affairs Minister, we used to monitor that month on month. And I think it's time that the policymakers and regulators seriously sat down, discussed with all stakeholders, discussed with economists even beyond their own, and we came to a considered view whether food inflation should at all be a part of the decision making for inflation or interest rates.
So I'm sure Dr. Ragarajan and indeed the governor will weigh in later. So do you think he should go big like the...
This is my opinion. I don't speak for the government. You asked me my opinion. So I'm not necessarily speaking for the government. I'm quoting from the CA's report and I'm stating on record, this has been my considered view for the last 20 years at least.
So 50 basis points or 25 basis points?
I'm not Nostradamus, nor am I an astrologer.
No, but what do you think they should do?
Well, they are wise men. I leave it to their judgment. Okay. It's signaling also. Very often it's signaling. Very often it's the intent. Very often it's the confidence you give to the market.
So you also alluded to, I mean, you didn't directly, but on this private capex not picking up. So
I didn't allude. Don't put words in my mouth, sir.
No, you didn't.
I never said. Did I ever say that?
You were.
I think private capex is picking up massively.
Right.
Every industrialist I meet, every foreign investor I meet, they talk of massive plans in India, massive growth in their industry investments, massive growth in looking at infrastructure assets. So pardon me, the private sector is very bullish on India. I think we need to see some more bullishness amongst the journalists.
Among the media, yeah. Point well taken. We'll keep that in mind. Okay, so let me change gears somewhat to another election, another consequential election which happened earlier this month. So, President Trump, Prime Minister Modi do share a common, perhaps a worldview to some extent. They get along well at a personal level. What are the changes do you see in this all-important India-US economic relation going forward? I know he's not yet in office. There is, whether he'll impose 10%, 20% tariffs or 60% on China remains to be seen. But how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think we have all seen how the Prime Minister over the last 10 years has made every Indian proud of being an India, and every Indian across the world today is received with respect, is received with dignity, something which we didn't see 10 years ago. And that is because Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government has never interfered in the affairs of any foreign country or the politics of any foreign country. Governments are chosen by the people of the land. We worked with the Obama administration. We worked with the Trump administration. We worked with the Biden administration. And we will now work with the Trump administration again. And our relation with the US has only got better and better with every passing day. Mr. Trump is on record to say that Prime Minister Modi is a wonderful person. Prime Minister Modi is a dear friend, a great friend. And I'm sure that we will do very well going forward. We've heard President Biden say India-US relation is the most consequential relationship of this century. I think Prime Minister Modi has earned the trust not only of politicians and governments across the world, but of the business community and the people of the world, because he works with a clean and honest intention. He says what he does. He advocates peace in the world. He advocates greater dialogue and diplomacy so that we don't have conflict around the world. And therefore today, he has not only been the most popular leader consistently for the last 10 years in India and across the world, as the Pew report shows us week on week. He has not only been the most popular in the world, but he's the most trusted leader in the entire world today.
I'm being asked to wind up, but I'll ask you a couple of questions. It's about Elon Musk, as you may have anticipated. So the first one is not the usual. He has been, he and Vivek Ramaswamy are heading this commission, DOGE or DOG, the commission to improve the efficiency of the US government. Does India need something similar?
Well, I think it's a good idea that Mr. Trump has initiated, and I compliment him for that. I hope they come up with good results, or at least better than the results we saw last time they had made that effort. We in India have been very successful in improving the efficiency of the government. We have a capacity building commission which trains all bureaucrats. We have brought in a number of efficiency elements. For example, all files are digitalized, all paperwork is reduced, public interface is through video conferencing. So government in India in the last 10 years has used technology to bring in efficiency in a big way. And I think going forward, we in India will continue to persevere. But it's a two-way sword. For example, it's not that you cut down people everywhere. In the Trademark and Patents Office, which comes under me, the amount of work in India, thanks to the thrust on innovation and R&D that we have been giving, has increased so much that we are actually hiring 1,000 more people. But how does that impact us? Before we have hired them also, in the last 10 years, the number of patents we have granted have increased from 6,000 in 2014 to 100,000 in 2024. Look at the pace of growth, and that's before the new people have come in. Once we have 1,000 more, we are already coming up with the Anusandhan NRF, National Research Foundation, to support public-private academia partnership in research and development. We are trying to encourage private sector to invest more in technology, in research, in innovation. And therefore, I believe that the Patents Office will need to continue to grow and bring more efficiency. So you have to assess item by item, department by department, what is important, what is good to be done.
What about the much talked about plans of Elon Musk to invest in India? The trail seems to have gone cold some months back. Is something happening there?
Well, that's a choice that Mr. Elon Musk will have to make. We will be very happy to welcome all the companies from across the world to come and invest in India, to make electric vehicles in India. This government over the last 10 years has consistently focused on sustainability. We are giving a number of incentives and schemes to promote more and more adoption of electric vehicles through our FAME scheme, through the recent PM e-bus Seva Yojana. I personally have been monitoring the cost differential between electric vehicles and ICE engines. I think today, on a total cost of ownership, it just doesn't make sense to buy anything but an electric vehicle. It's the right time. Two-wheelers have almost all gone electric. On buses, I think it's a great economic model to go electric. With the fall of prices of batteries and with newer ideas like the plug-in hybrid, where you first run on a battery for about 100 kilometers, your passenger car, and after you run out of it, it switches to petrol. It's not a hybrid of the traditional type that we saw, let's say the Camry. This is significantly different. And the more I studied it, though I was always anti-hybrid, publicly, including on CNBC programs, I was always anti-hybrid. But when I studied the model of the plug-in hybrid, where you can have the first 100 kilometers of a passenger car on electric, and only in the case of emergency switch to petrol, it takes care of range anxiety, and it helps cut down petrol consumption probably by 90-95%. I was assessing my own vehicle's consumption or distance traveled, and I could see only 1 or 2 days in a year when I go more than 100 kilometers by car. If it's anything longer, you take a train or you take a flight. So I think it's something whose idea has come. But more and more, our buses, our trucks, our passenger vehicles are going to see electric mobility. Companies are taking on this challenge also. They are looking at being net zero, some by 2030, some by 2035. I invite industry to at least immediately look at switching over to electric vehicles or better modes of transport and logistics, and contribute to this effort to make India a great place to live in, bring down pollution, and contribute to our sustainability effort.
So, Minister, what the US does have a huge signaling effect for the rest of the world. Still, the Inflation Reduction Act is likely to be substantially rolled back once President Trump assumes office, including the emphasis on electrification and all that. But we are not going to change. We are going to go all in for electric as we...
I think we are not going to change. We stand committed to promoting sustainability. And we believe, even though we are not responsible for this problem in the first place, I think everybody in this room recognizes supporting 16% of the world's population. Our contribution to the mess up there is less than probably 3 or 4%. So we are not responsible. But Prime Minister Modi, who played an important role to make COP21 a success, to bring the Paris Agreement to fruition, stands committed as the leader of the Global South to be a part of the solution, even though we are not the problem in the first place.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for your valuable time this morning and adding so much to our special day here at CNBC TV18. And thank you, Bodhisattva Ganguly, for taking us through that session. Both of you, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure hearing you both.
All right. Moving on, let's welcome Shireen and Ms. Essie Eggleston Bracey for a powerful discussion.